This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's our toll-free number, 855-450-3733. The show that's all about liberty and freedom and why we think that's a good idea for you and you should be moving in that direction too. It's just myself in studio this evening. This is Chris. And I want to talk to you. If you can also hit us up on Discord, that's discord.lrn.fm. All you got to do is load up the Discord client. You can find that in your App Store or your Play Store. Load up the client, use your high-speed internet connection and a decent microphone, and voila, you are going to sound like you are right here in the studio with us. And that is pretty cool. What is also kind of cool, I think, is Amazon. Amazon, I like to bring out when they do good stuff because they take a lot of flack. There's a lot of people in the political world that like to see Amazon fall. They like to read and talk about any bad news that befalls Amazon. But I really like the free market, and I like it when businesses can innovate. And this, I think, is pretty innovative. This falls on sort of the tail end of something Amazon did last year, where they were paying employees to maybe start their own delivery service. And now they're doing the same thing again, but a little bit bigger. This comes to us from Yahoo Finance. New York, Amazon, which is racing to deliver packages faster, is turning its own employees with a proposition: quit your job and we'll help you start a business delivering Amazon packages. This is a little bit different than what they did before. The offer announced Monday comes as Amazon seeks to speed up its shipping time from 2 days to 1 day for its Prime members. The company sees the new incentive as a way to get more packages delivered to shoppers' doorsteps more quickly. Amazon says it will cover up to $10,000 in startup costs for employees who are accepted into the program and leave their jobs. Those who participate will be able to lease blue vans with the Amazon Smile logo stamped on the side. The company says it will also pay them 3 months' salary to get started. The offer is open to most part-time and full-time Amazon employees, including warehouse workers who pack and ship orders. The Whole Foods employees are not eligible to receive the new incentives at this time. Seattle-based Amazon.com declined to say how many employees it expects to have them take it up on the offer. So this is kind of interesting. In other words, you're doing a job. The job that you're doing with Amazon today probably involves packing and shipping boxes, packages, goods to people all over the world, or at least across the United States. The idea that we will incentivize you and we're basically letting you out of any employment you have with Amazon directly in what you're doing, and we want you to be an entrepreneur. How cool is that? I mean, the idea that someone could start up their own personal business, they're going to get help by Amazon, they're going to get funding, they're going to get assistance in covering startup costs, and off you go in your nice, shiny new Amazon van with its blue Smile logo on the side. What do you think? 855-450-FREE. Give me a call. I'd really love to hear your opinion on this. The new employee incentive is part of a program Amazon started a year ago to let anyone apply to launch an independent Amazon delivery business and provided $10,000 in reimbursements to military veterans. The expansion is part of the company's plan to gain more control over its deliveries rather than rely on UPS, the post office, and other carriers. It also gives Amazon a way to grow its delivery network without spending the money needed to buy vehicles or hire workers, says Barb Ivanoff, director of University of Washington's Urban Freight Lab, a research lab that focuses on logistics and supply chain transportation. Quote, "The wage problem won't be Amazon's problem," unquote, says Ivanoff. Overall, more than 200 Amazon delivery businesses have been created since it launched the program last June, says John Felton, Amazon Vice President of Global Delivery Services. One of them is run by Milton Collier, a freight broker who started his business in Atlanta about 8 months ago. Since then, he has grown to 120 employees with a fleet of 50 vans that can handle deliveries up to 200 stops in a day. It's also been preparing one-day shipping switch to hire more people. We're ready, says Collier. That is amazing. I mean, this guy basically got assistance from Amazon, and the whole we're going to help you start up, $10,000, and has now turned that into a business with a fleet of 50 vans, 120 employees, and capacity to handle 200 delivery stops a day. I mean, that's something that businesses will start up and work towards. I don't know how many delivery businesses can say that they can handle 200 stops in a day, and they're employing 120 people after about 8 months in business. That is seriously insane. But Amazon is still far from posing a threat to UPS and FedEx, says Beth Davis-Saranic, a supply chain management professor at Auburn University. These carriers have thousands of trucks and hundreds of planes, and to get packages where they need to go. And they're doing more than just delivering boxes to doorstep, she says. They're also transporting packages between warehouse and businesses. Quote, UPS and FedEx will be just fine, says Davis Ceramic. What do you think? 855-450 free. I think just this idea that big businesses can succeed and find opportunities by expanding the number of entrepreneurs they have that are affiliated with them. This is exactly what is wrong with this idea that all business is evil and that it doesn't provide any social benefit. The idea that Amazon is just raking in millions and billions of dollars and it's doing it all tax-free and it doesn't provide anything back. I would love to say to that guy who's hired and created a business of 120 employees, tell me that Amazon hasn't done anything for you. Tell those 120 employees whose families now benefit from Amazon's program that you aren't better off now than you were then. This is great, and I want to see more projects and ideas take root like this one has. This is absolutely brilliant, and I wish Amazon the best of luck in this. I don't think it's going to my wishes are not going to have anything to do with this. This thing is going to either succeed or fail based on the marketplace. And, that's what this all comes down to. There are a lot of people that believe that they should be able to dictate what companies do and, or that some companies are very valuable and they should be propped up with, kickbacks and they should, bailouts and things like that, like banks. Banks get bailed out all the time. The idea that the marketplace can tell you if you're doing things right or wrong. If you're doing things wrong, the marketplace will punish you, and you should go out of business. The problem is a lot of these people and a lot of these companies pay huge amounts to lobbyists to ensure that they don't have to worry about that whole we're going out of business part. The taxpayers will cover us. 855-450 free. What do you think? Should Amazon keep up this type of thing? I'd love to see more types of programs that could expand in all sorts of different businesses that are taking advantage of in-home delivery. We've seen that to some degree. Instacart is a good one. Instacart will deliver your groceries right to your door. All you got to do is go online, place an order, and there you go. What these things do is they provide convenience, and they provide a better way for us to allocate our time. Maybe going to the grocery store is not the best allocation of time for me, so why wouldn't I pay somebody else to do it for me? That just makes common sense, especially if you have a job that you really can't get away with. It either impacts your time personally or it impacts your business in the pocketbook. 855-450 free. I want to hear what you think about Amazon. This is Free Talk Live. is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. That is our toll-free number. You can get on the air. You can get on the radio. Have you never been on the radio? Well, this is a great show for you because it's open phones. That means we take your calls regardless. Of course, if you say bad words, then you're going to have a very short phone call. But we want to promote the idea that, hey, you bring up what's on your mind. You don't have to listen to what we have on our mind. And that's kind of unique in the world of talk radio. We're not left. We're not right. We're not really anything. We are whatever you want us to be. And I want to tell you a little bit about Bitcoin.com. Bitcoin.com is your premier source for everything Bitcoin Cash related. Bitcoin.com can help you choose a Bitcoin Cash wallet, buy Bitcoin, and show you where you can spend your Bitcoin Cash. You can also read the latest news or engage with the community on the Bitcoin forums. Learn more at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. So, frequent listeners, I'm sure you're aware that we broadcast from what I consider the greatest state in the union. That is the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire certainly is well known for its live free or die mentality, this idea that, and we've shown this in our politics, that we'd rather just be left alone. We don't need a lot of big government telling us what we can and cannot do. And it turns out that U.S. News and World Reports has recognized that, too. We didn't get number one, but New Hampshire was named the second best state in the United States, according to their survey. Concord, New Hampshire, many left countries at war or foreign refugee camps where their lives were in limbo. Some came for a better life and a safe place to raise a family and educate their children. All were willing to grapple with the massive cultural shock of moving from Africa, Southeast Asia, or the Middle East to a place with a different language, foreign customs, and harsh winters. That place is New Hampshire, number 2 overall in U.S. News and World Report's 2019 Best States rankings and number 1 for opportunity. And while the Granite State is long known for its homogeneity, it's 94% white, the foreign-born population is an increasing presence, with the international population growing by more than 53% between 2000 and 2017. The presence of immigrants and refugees, quote, new Americans as they are known, are seen in Concord's first permanent mosque and in the face of Burundi bride decked out in brightly colored wedding attire. It is heard in New Hampshire schools where 136 foreign languages are spoken by students, and at Second Start, a resource for new Americans, where a Congolese immigrant who speaks 5 languages is teaching others new arrivals how to drive. Quote, when I first came here in 2013, I was desperate, said Morgan Mabui, who left a strife-torn Democratic Republic of Congo to go to a refugee camp in Namibia before being resettled in New Hampshire. It was hard to find a job without references, and, quote, there were not too many black people, unquote, he says. Babui got some experience volunteering and has worked as an interpreter and as a truck loader. He now drives a bus in addition to his work at Second Start. Quote, if you've got a driver's license, you've become independent, Mabui says. So this idea, and I know it probably irks some people on the, I'm going to say on the right-hand side. Joined in studio is Michael. Well, hold on. Let's try that again with your mic unmuted.
Yeah, having the mic unmuted might work pretty well.
You sound so much more clear now.
Michael Hampton filling in for whoever was supposed to be here and isn't.
I think it was Johnson, but maybe
I wasn't going to embarrass him on air.
I will. His wires got crossed.
Oh.
The wires get crossed. We all visualize anything.
Well, then you got to call the electrician and get that dealt with.
We'll work on that. But this idea that in New Hampshire, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that its homogeneity kind of struck me when I got here. You don't see a lot of
people who aren't white.
people who aren't white. That's a good way to put it.
People of color, as they say now.
Yes, and, with 94% white people, it's kind of interesting. But I think that idea that is growing and expanding, it's not something to fear. It hasn't proven bad for New Hampshire, and I think the fact that we're increasing, going up in the ranks, the number one state for opportunity, according to new U.S. News and World Report, I think that's pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I saw a headline. I didn't get a chance to actually read the article, but I saw a headline earlier that said New Hampshire was the second best state in the country. Yes,
and that was, and it's pretty interesting to see just where we placed in different things. So certain things like, healthcare was number 5, and on these, it's not going to be the state that gets all ones, because nobody gets all ones.
Yeah, nobody.
But I think if I were to pick a place to live, the state that was number 1 in opportunity would be way up there for me.
Yeah. You have to pick what's important to you.
Yeah, and the number, and I think we can say what is important to some people, the number 1 state, according to that same U.S. News and World Report, according to that, was Washington State.
Well, that's an odd choice.
Right.
I guess it depends on how you rank them, though.
Well, and again, they sort of did it, topic by topic, and environment, how beautiful it is. Those are things that play into this. But I think there's such a distinction between New Hampshire and Washington State. Washington State thrives with a big government.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say it doesn't thrive. It doesn't thrive. It's the cracks are starting to appear.
Yeah, well, the thing about Washington State is it's got this nice area that's nice and rural, low crime, and all of this, and it's surrounded by Seattle.
It's the other way around. It's this little tiny pocket, which is
Seattle is off to the side here, and it kind of does what big cities tend to do.
They dominate the political landscape for the whole state. And as somebody who grew up in the eastern half of Oregon, and if you're curious about what's in the eastern half of Oregon, please find out and tell somebody else, because nobody else knows what's out there either. The long and the short of it is there's very little population. It tends to be more conservative, and you have the crazy left stuff that tends to go down in Portland. And where most of the votes are, they're going to be the ones that dictate policy for the rest of any given state.
So your low population rural area gets dominated by the big cities.
Sure. Now, New Hampshire's interesting because we don't really have any big cities. The biggest city is...
Manchester and Nashua are not that big.
Yeah, it's somewhere... I want to say Nashua was approaching 90,000 at some point. But that's the largest city in the state, and even if you were to look at red-blue, it's really hard to look at like counties because...
Yeah, New Hampshire's more purple.
It is. It's very much purple. And that makes for some interesting politics and definitely more opportunities for more points of view. 855-450-FREE. What do you think? 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live has found that though U.S. financial institutions are prohibited from doing business with foreign gambling websites, it's not illegal for U.S.-based internet users to gamble on those sites. People have been using VPNs or virtual private networks to connect to sites like games.bitcoin.com and play games with Bitcoin Cash. Games.bitcoin.com features poker, blackjack, roulette, craps, keno, slots, and dice. You can conduct your own investigation at games.bitcoin.com.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's our toll-free number. That's 855-450-3733. Give us a call. Tell us what's on your mind. Just because we are talking about a story from U.S. News and World Report about how great the state of New Hampshire is doesn't mean that we can't take your calls on any subject. And this is really talking about a phenomenon that they're referring to as New Americans. I don't think that's a new phenomenon.
New Americans? Like I said, I'd only read the headline before I had to take off out of here and then come right back. So.
And Michael, I do appreciate that. It is just this idea that For whatever, well, we know what reason, New Hampshire seems to be somewhat of a magnet for new Americans, people who are coming from other countries, particularly war-torn countries, as a place to settle.
Yeah, refugees get settled in New Hampshire a lot.
Yeah, and the increase in foreign-born population has increased approximately 53% between 2000 and 2017, which is pretty amazing. And Michael and I talked a little bit about it, and I don't know if it was it's not a shock. It was just sort of a surprise that, after a couple trips up here before we made the move as part of a Liberty migration, if you will, you start looking around and going, man, there's a lot of white people.
Oh, yeah. Hey. Well, the thing about that is I used to live in Manchester. I moved there in 2007, and I was there for 10 years before I came down here to Keene.
Right.
And you actually did see quite a bit of black people in Manchester. But the thing is, when you would talk to them, you would find out that they were African immigrants.
Interesting.
They were not so-called African Americans. They were immigrants.
Right. And I think from my point of view, this is a great thing. First of all, I don't believe in this idea that immigrants pose a threat to the United States, unless they're bad people, and then they're bad people. Regardless of what color they are.
Yeah, the color's not relevant.
No, it's a factor: are they good people or are they bad people? But by default, they're not all bad. And number two, we have a real need in our economy for human capital. We need workers. And in any economy, you need new ideas and people who are going to come in, share those ideas, and try to serve some use. And that's how businesses are grown. Elon Musk, immigrant. Am I right?
Yeah.
Is he illegal? Just kidding.
I have no idea.
I don't either. But I've always heard that.
And I don't care.
I don't either. And what difference would that make?
None at all. None at all.
Exactly. The story continues. Independence is a stubbornly held trait in New Hampshire, where the state motto is, quote, live free or die, unquote. It has no personal income tax. Quote, undeclared, unquote, voters outnumber Democrats and Republicans. So let me repeat that. If you go to New Hampshire and register to vote, you can either register as one of the major parties,
Democrat or Republican.
I'm a Republican or a Democrat, and it's really tough for third parties to get on that choice. And if you are a third party or you just don't feel that you're a Democrat or Republican, you can declare yourself as undeclared.
Yeah, and I think last stat I saw was something like 40-something% were undeclared.
Yeah, it's the majority. If you asked what the top political affiliation in New Hampshire is, it's not being affiliated with anybody.
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing. There is a pride here in being self-sufficient, with residents making up their own minds without government interference. Quote, this is another line. It's the only state that does not require adults to use seatbelts.
That's true.
If you happen to be driving a motorcycle, you also don't have to
use a helmet.
Don't have to wear a helmet.
It's still a really good idea in both cases, but you don't have the nanny state behind us wanting to pull you over if you happen to forget or decide not to.
And that's the point. It's not about being reckless, even though that's how it appears to a lot of people, especially the seatbelt thing. A lot of people just can't even comprehend that. But the idea that you're an adult, and guess what? I wear my seatbelt.
Yeah, so do I.
All the time. And nobody has to tell me to do that.
It's because we're intelligent people and we know how to make right decisions for ourselves.
And I think the other thing is, and why we don't have a seatbelt law, it's not that it's not a good idea, it's that we know what happens when you pass a law. That soon somebody will want to make that law a little bit stricter.
Yep.
So let's say we start off and we say, okay, Michael, from now on, seatbelts in New Hampshire. This is now the law. And then it's going to be, well, you have to have seat belts for everyone in the car even if they're over a certain age or in their back seat. And these are the laws that you guys have in every other state.
It's a creeping authoritarian. This is what happened in other states too. First, they passed the seatbelt and made it like a so-called secondary enforcement. So that if the cop hadn't noticed it, no. But if they pulled you over for something else, then they would ticket you for the seatbelt. Then they made it primary enforcement, so where they would ticket you if they ever saw your seatbelt wasn't on.
Right. And again, well, it's not about the money. It's about people's lives. Then why is it now?
It's about the money.
Exactly. Why is it now a source of revenue that if anybody comes up with a proposal to get rid of it, you guys will immediately jump on it and say, but the state will lose X number of billions of dollars because we're not enforcing a seatbelt law. 855-450-FREE. This story continues. The do-it-yourself mentality has not made new Americans feel unwelcome here, residents say. Instead, operations such as Sick and Start and other refugee and immigration assistance groups have helped newcomers help themselves. There are certainly struggles, whether it's adjusting from a hot climate to a snowy one or finding work without a verifiable job history, but newcomers say they are finding their way. Quote, the American people are such beautiful people. They are happy to speak with me and my family, says Narwaz Altahar, age 38, an Iraqi-born, now U.S. citizen who came to the United States with her husband after he served as an interpreter for the U.S. military in Iraq. Altahar says she does not feel an anti-immigrant sentiment in Concord. People might ask her about her head covering, she says, but as a matter of curiosity and not contempt. Ghana Sharma, a Bhutanese native who came to the Granite State in 2009 and is now a U.S. citizen, says he plans to stay in New Hampshire. Quote, it's not too crowded, it's peaceful, there's a lot of opportunity and welcoming of new Americans here, the 44-year-old Sharma explains. So, and I'm sure, I know this because people are people and some people have different opinions. There is undoubtedly some foreign-born New Hampshireite who's getting a raft of crap from his neighbor over their headdress. You know what I mean?
No,
you're going to have it.
Somebody out, it's happening to somebody somewhere.
It is. But you got a whole lot of people, and I can just
because
speak for...
There are bad people, and not all... we were saying that conservatives think immigrants are bad people. No, bad people are bad people, and there are bad American people, too.
That is the truth. 855-450-FREE. This idea that anyone who doesn't speak or look exactly the way you do is by default evil just doesn't stand up when you look at American history.
It's crazy.
We are a nation of immigrants. I hate to keep reminding people of that. My great-grandparents were Swiss. That's a kind of an odd one. Not a lot of people came over from Switzerland. But every walk of life, every part of the world, and to think that Mexicans are the greatest threat now, it's a clear and present danger in the minds of President Trump.
Oh, how ridiculous.
I know, and by no means the largest group. The Chinese immigrants outnumber Mexican immigrants every year, and they seem to be doing fine, and we seem to have no real issue with them. And I don't know. A safe haven for the war-weary, New Hampshire is an assigned destination for some of the state's foreign-born population since U.S. refugee resettlement agencies decide where people go after they've been vetted and given refugee status. So we actually have the federal government, dare I say,
the feds decide what city you live in if you're a refugee.
And they're sending them here, and I, for one, don't mind. I think it's a good thing. 855-450-FREE. What do you think? Would you mind immigrants being sent to your state? This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE. That's our toll-free number. Or 855-450-3733. We want to hear from you. What's on your mind? And right now, hey, we bring stuff in. We want to talk about some things too, but we can change the subject at any time, depending on what you want to talk about. In New Hampshire, we're talking about a U.S. News and World Report article, which talks about New Hampshire as a land of opportunity for refugees and immigrants. It talks about how, frankly, white New Hampshire is and how it seems to be doing extremely well in inviting in people from other countries. Their term for it is, quote, new Americans. And I think New Hampshire benefits by this. It talks a little bit about how independent New Hampshire is, and those of us who have made it our homes, I think we agree. I don't know if I agree that the work's not done by any stretch.
Oh, no. The work's never done.
But we keep working on it, and that's the big thing. New Hampshire is also an assigned destination for some of the state's foreign population because U.S. resettlement agencies will send people to New Hampshire, and we don't really mind that at all. But one thing I do want to tell you about before we go any further is Liberty.menu. For years, libertarians of all stripes have wanted a directory of liberty-minded businesses, and we helped build one, Liberty.menu. Liberty.menu is a tool for your community. At its core is a directory of events, businesses, and digital content, and more. Listings can be rated and reviewed, and there's a bit of a social network aspect so you can connect and share with other people. Use of Liberty.menu is exclusively for individuals who reject the initiation of force and for those who agreed to abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle. Put your voluntarist ideas into action at Liberty.menu and use code FTL to get a special badge. That's Liberty.menu. And this story continues, and it talks a little bit about how New Hampshire ends up being sort of this safe haven. New Hampshire is an assigned destination for some of the state's foreign-born population, since U.S. refugee resettlement agencies decide where people go after they've been vetted and given refugee status. From fiscal years 2011 to 2018, New Hampshire has become home for more than 3,177 refugees, mostly from African nations, according to Amy Marchildren.
Yep, that jives with what I saw in Manchester.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I got to imagine neighborhoods becoming a little bit more vibrant.
Yeah.
And new types of businesses, and this is all good stuff.
Yeah, the area of Manchester I lived in actually was kind of predominantly Hispanic, actually.
Right.
And then the grocery store down the street, you had all kinds of people in there, white, Hispanic, black, like the African immigrants I was telling you about.
Right.
You had everybody there. So, yeah.
Unbelievable. And again, that's good. Amy Marchon, Director of Services for New Americans at Accentria Care Alliance, which resettles refugees fleeing war and persecution. The number of refugees has dropped, though, when the Trump administration's tighter regulations. Marchon notes, in New Hampshire alone, the number of resettled refugees went from 518 in fiscal year 2016 to 362 in fiscal year 2017 to 162 in fiscal year 2018. She says, it's, that to me is the opposite. Again, this idea when we talk about what makes economies, part of that is human capital and what new ideas do we bring in. I'm going to go to the phones where we've got Sarah calling in from New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yes, David, last night from New Mexico, David mentioned that they encourage the host to do not come out here for vacation.
Because
to New Mexico.
Why not?
Yeah, because I want to tell both of you guys, all of the hosts, do not come out here for vacation to New Mexico.
What's wrong with New Mexico?
That sounds like a lovely place.
Well, don't let the advertisement fool you because he's white. The thing is, you'll get struck by a car or get killed by a car here in New Mexico.
Sarah.
Is that not something I can get struck by a car here at home. Are you saying that I have to go to New Mexico to get struck by a car?
No, but they struck like 800 pedestrians here last year in New Mexico. and then they killed an Australian citizen on a bicycle.
Who is this?
They just hit him from the back.
Who is this they?
Yeah, is it just random people hitting people?
It's like a sport.
A lady from Clovis. And you know what? And I'm mad because the last governor, they spent like $1 million of state funding for advertisement to entice people to come on vacation here.
Well, of course they would.
They come over here.
Why wouldn't
and you know
they?
what? And they're trying to encourage the economy. The tourist spring economy.
How does encouraging people to come visit cause deaths by car accident? How does one thing have something to do with the other?
The thing is, but they'll come over here and get their legs broken and their hips busted or get killed on a bike. That's what I'm saying. So David is right. David said that the school bus driver raped a 7-year-old girl on the bus. That's why he said don't come out here last night. But I'm saying do not come out here for vacation. So you're being suckered.
Okay.
Oh,
Hey, thanks for your call, Sarah. That's interesting. Okay, so if anybody's been planning on a vacation, come to New Hampshire. Don't go to New Mexico, evidently, because you will be hit by a car. Staying with the phones, this is Tom in Detroit. Tom, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey, guys. Wow. Surprised not to hear Ian or Mark, but anyway, good enough. I wanted to talk about the trade war, so-called trade war, and how it could benefit us here in this so-called country.
Wait, so how does the trade war where we're getting slapped with it? Well, Trump is supposedly saying that China gets hit with a 25% tariff, but we all know that what happens is the price of those imports gets raised by 25%, and we have to pay that.
Right.
So how can we possibly benefit?
Okay, well, check this out. At first, this is my opinion. At first, yes, it will hurt. Everything, it's going to be painful at first.
Okay.
But the bottom line is, I am sick and tired of this country not producing anything that we buy. And eventually, when we get through the painful cycle, we will be finally buying our own stuff.
Why would I do that?
Hold on, let me finish, okay?
Please.
Because the hype is that inflation is going to happen, of course, because the American worker cannot live on $2 a day. Of course, things are going to cost more. But the bottom line is, when we start buying things from each other that we are producing to each other, for each other, we're going to benefit.
Okay, so let me give you a little bit of an economics lesson. Inflation and raising costs have nothing to do with how much we buy from each other. It's a function of currency. And if governments inflate their currencies, which ours likes to do, then we are going to have built-in inflation. That's just going to happen. When you slap on a tax that is only paid by the people that want to buy those products, those are Americans, then there is no benefit. Trade wars have never, you can't show me anything, any documentation showing that a trade war ever benefited the people. It benefits certain industries. It benefits certain voter blocks like trade unions and things like that, but it's not going to benefit the average citizen. I know there's a desire to change behavior so that we do buy more things that we produce ourselves, and I'm not opposed to that, but I'm also not, going to sit here and glad stand and say, hey, we should really buy more expensive products. What takes money out of my pocket is when I have to buy a more expensive product, and right now it's anything that's going to be hit with the quote-unquote, tariffs from China. I don't like buying necessarily things from China, but I like bargains. Your response.
I've let you express yourself. And again, you completely skated right over what I said. And I agree with you. We all want to pay the least amount for what we want to consume. I agree with that.
Okay.
But the bottom line is, if everything that we consume is produced by nations that are paying their people $2 a day to produce those things, where would that leave us?
With less expensive goods and more in our pocket. Tom, I can tell you have more to say, and I want to hold you over if that's okay. I'm going to put you on hold. We'll come back in just a moment. 855-450-FREE. Do you think Tom's right, or do you think I might be on?
Would you like to hang out with Penn Jillette? He's keynoting Freedom Fest this year. I, for one, am thrilled. Freedom Fest is the largest liberty-oriented gathering in the world. They take a Big Ten approach with libertarians, conservatives, liberals, anarchists, capitalists, and just open-minded people mingling together to hear real debates, share real solutions, and converse freely. This year's theme is the Wild West, a time of liberty and opportunity, or a time of anarchy and violence. Maybe both. Go to freedomfest.com/FTL and get your tickets now. freedomfest.com/FTL. Not convinced yet? Hey, I understand. It's a high-end event. Even with coupon code FTL50. Sure, you're likely to receive investment advice that'll make that sum seem paltry, but I have something special for you. Go to freedomfest.com/FTL and you'll get the 5 best speeches from last year for free. Call it a test drive. Do yourself a favor and go to freedomfest.com/FTL. freedomfest.com/FTL. Use coupon code FTL50 for a discount.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE, hour number 2 for Free Talk Live tonight. We do this every night. 3 hours, 365 days a year, 7 p.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern. We never get tired of it. Never.
Nope.
I'm defying you, Michael, to say you ever get tired of it.
I've been going for 4 hours now, and I've got 2 more to go. And I did a 3-hour show before this. So.
Yeah, so 6 hours of radio from Michael, and that's a good thing because he's entertaining. He's in studio with myself. My name's Chris, and we've been kind of all over the board. We've been talking about Amazon expanding their program to help employees set up their own delivery service. And we've been talking about New Hampshire being a land of opportunity for immigrants. And I'm anxious to hear what...
I'm glad to see them.
I am too, because that gives us more employees, and that helps us build our economy. And that is one of the things that we like to discuss on here, this idea that if we have more human capital, then there's more opportunities for a lot more people. If a couple of those immigrants happen to start businesses that employ 10, 20, 50 people, that's a big deal. And we've been talking tariffs, which I think is bad economic policy, but Tom in Detroit believes that it's good economic policy. So we're going to go back to Tom. Tom, you're back on Free Talk Live. So sell me on this. Tell me why, despite history, despite the biggest economic boom came after we slaughtered the most tariffs in this nation's history after Smoot-Hawley back in the 1930s. Tell me why this is a good idea and why this time it's going to work.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, the bottom line is this. The Chinese have had an unfair playing field because of government. You and I can probably both agree that government is nothing but people, forcing us to pay them and rigging the game to the advantage of the rich. And I have nothing against the rich. Being rich is a great thing. We all strive to be that. But here's the deal. The Chinese are making... When was the last time you could buy a television or a washing machine or damn near anything that you use that's not made in China or Taiwan or somewhere over there? Am I right?
I buy a lot of things that are not made in China. I buy a lot of things that are made in South Korea, particularly LG Electronics and things like that. South Korea.
Okay.
It's a democracy.
Oh, it's great.
Okay.
When was the last time you bought something that was made here in America?
Today. I buy lots of things that are made in America. What I do, how I purchase is I purchase on what provides me the best value. And while some people like to think that that's, if it's not made in America, then it must be bad. Well, it's not bad for my bottom line. If I have $20.
That's not what I'm saying. No, dude,
why should I care whether it's made in America or not?
Right.
I agree with you. I agree with you if everyone was on a a free trade agreement does not require 720 pages to describe it.
Right.
Free trade is, okay, so let's
can you
start
force
there.
people into
Okay.
agreements?
What's that?
Can you force other nations into agreements?
No. We shouldn't need to force anyone to do anything. I am about free trade, period.
But you're
It doesn't
advocating trying to force China to change their domestic policy.
No. What I'm saying is, at this point right now, which I hate, because government is just a bunch of hypocrite folks that are trying to steal from us. We won't go there right now. But the bottom line is, and I am not a supporter of Trump in any way and government in any way, but at least he is trying to bring the playing field down to an even standard. It's like, look, dudes, over there, they are supplementing every industry to undercut our industries over here so that we will buy their stuff and not buy our own. How is that helping us? How is that helping you when I buy a car? How is that helping you when I buy a house?
It
if
helps
we can't
because
afford
I can
to buy our own stuff.
Right, but I can afford to buy something made in China when I may not be able to afford to buy something in America. If something is made in America, it's going to win if it is the best product at the best value. That's it. That's the only thing I judge. Yes.
No, listen, man. This is not even fair. You're not listening to what I'm saying. If something is built in America, I have a job here in America. You may have a job. I know a lot of you guys don't. I'm not insulting you, okay? A lot of the guys that are with Mark Stevens, okay? I'm a big fan of Mark Stevens, and I see so many of them unemployed. I don't want to say the word losers, okay? But the bottom line is, if you're a working man in this country, and you have to pay for your house, and you have to consume and buy goods that are for your family, I would prefer to buy the goods made by people that are around me. But guess what? People that are around me can't compete because the people in China and North Korea and Taiwan and Vietnam, the governments are supplementing it, or they're so suppressing those people and oppressing those people that they make $2 a day if they're lucky.
So would you make a pledge? Would you make a pledge to only buy products that are not subsidized by governments? I think that's a decent question. Would you only buy products that are not subsidized by governments?
That's a good question. That's a fair question. Of course, I'm a hypocrite. I shop for the cheapest goods.
Exactly.
I'm being honest with you.
Of course.
But
and
listen,
what do you think of your price of gas?
Let me finish. If Trump actually succeeds in completely, you know what? Screw China, screw India, screw all of them. You're not going to bring in your items here. We are only going to buy our own items, and we are going to support our own people, and we are going to pay whatever it takes. If I got to pay $10 for a loaf of bread, so be it. Because my brother, I don't know, how many homeless people do we have here? You know what I'm saying?
A bunch, sure.
I'm going to employ my own people.
I understand what you're saying, but we're ignoring the realities of a global marketplace. The idea that we would only buy things, and this is why I asked it, we will only buy things that are not subsidized, that eliminates gas. That eliminates oil. That eliminates sugar.
It's only a global marketplace. Hold on.
That eliminates food.
I hate to do this.
Please.
But it's only a global marketplace because of the fact that, or how I should say this, despite it, or how do I word this? It's a global marketplace, and I'm for that. I'm for complete free trade. But all the countries, like China, they supplement. Dude, this is not a global marketplace. It's not a fair playing field.
I appreciate your argument.
I'm completely against Trump. I'm completely against government. I can't stand any of them. But damn it, when will somebody put their foot down and say, that's it?
What I would like to see is free markets that don't have governments monkeying with them. In that, we are in agreement. But the problem is the United States monkeys with our economy in terms of price fixing, in terms of subsidies, in all these things that we attack. And for God's sakes, half of Trump's thing is he's attacking them for currency manipulation. We're the biggest manipulator of currency on the planet. Tom, thank you for the call. You know, and I understand where he's coming from. People, there is an element of tribe mentality that I think a lot of Americans share. And it's this, I want my country to succeed, and I want people to buy American. But
buying local is fine if you can.
If you can. And I think it's a feel-good thing. What I want is the best value. And when we, tariffs and trade wars, it all gets confusing. It makes people believe that the Chinese are paying more. No, the Chinese are not paying more. American taxpayers are paying more on every item that they buy from a particular country that's tariffed. That is why, if anyone remembers, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the guy droning on and on about Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, that thing was a disaster. It led up to the Great Depression. It's questionable whether it was an actual cause. 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. In studio, you have myself, Chris.
And Michael.
And we've been mixing it up. We've been talking tariffs. I know that's a dreadfully...
It sounds so boring, but, the thing about it is it really affects everybody, and at least trying to pay a little bit of attention to what's going on, because it's going to hit you in your wallet.
Yes. And that's the big thing. And what people, I'm going to dumb this down as much as I possibly can. A U.S. tariff on a Chinese product means that you, the consumer, will pay X percent more for that product. End of story. No. We don't send a bill to China saying you owe us $10 billion in tariffs.
Nope, that's not how the tariff works. They collect that at the port.
Yes. The idea that all it means is higher prices. And these things don't work. Trade wars don't work. You can't go through history and prove to me, I defy you, call me at 855-450-FREE, show me where a trade war or a tariff truly made an impact, where it created a result that was positive. You're going to end up with this back and forth that's going to end up costing people on both sides. It's going to cost the producer. It's going to cost the consumer. The consumer is the only one who's going to pay it directly. And if Trump's Trump's trade war is so great, then why is Trump pushing for new bailouts for farmers who are hurt by his trade war?
Yeah, if it was so good for us, he wouldn't need to do this.
This comes to us from Vox, and Vox runs this headline: Trump seeks government help for, quote, great patriot farmers who are being hit by Chinese retaliatory tariffs. Washington, President Donald Trump is opposed to the government interfering in the market to pick winners and losers, at least when doing so actually directly benefits voters crucial to his reelection prospects. In recent months, Trump has made his opposition to socialism, a system of government in which the government plays a leading role in distributing goods and services, a regular feature of his speeches. During his most recent State of the Union address, Trump alluded to rhetoric by Democrats and said, quote, here in the United States, we are alarmed by new calls to adopt socialism in our country, unquote. At a rally in Wisconsin last month, Trump vowed that America, quote, will never be a socialist country, unquote.
I sure hope not.
I'm going to debate whether it has not. He framed the crisis in Venezuela as a failure of socialism and suggested Democrats wanted to see the Mueller investigation to force him out of office and, quote, institute socialism. Life, however, comes at you fast, especially when you're launching a trade war with a country that represents the second largest export market for American agriculture. Let me be clear. What this article is saying is the second largest market for U.S. exports of agricultural products.
So here's what's going on. The U.S. sells food to China.
Yes.
China sells computers and phones and washing machines to the U.S.
Yes. Thank you, Michael. But again, that first part where we're selling our American goods, which are mostly agricultural goods, to the Chinese, it is going to hurt American farmers, and that's what's happening. During an Oval Office event with Hungary's far-right leader Viktor Orban on Monday, Trump outlined a plan to redistribute money from American importers to farmers hurt by his escalating trade war with China that might fall far short of socialism, but is certainly a far cry from the values of the free market and free trade traditionally embraced by Republicans.
This is definitely manipulation of the market to achieve. I don't even know what Trump is trying to achieve here, because you don't put tariffs on something to make a statement or to coerce the other country into doing something. That
oh no, you do. You try.
It doesn't work. It never
doesn't
did.
work. That's the problem. But I hate to take issue with this, Mr. Trump, but
so
when you manipulate markets and you assume control of the means of production through pricing, you are behaving as a socialist does.
But it's so obvious that it doesn't work. Everyone knows this. So I have to wonder if something else is going on that we don't quite understand yet.
I think there's a 2020 election coming up. I think that's part of this.
Well, yeah, that could be.
Out of the billions of dollars that we're taking in from tariffs, really? How are we taking in billions of dollars in tariffs? We're not. American consumers are paying billions of dollars in tariff payments.
Yep, you paid that money.
A small portion of that will be going to our farmers, unquote, Trump said. Quote, we're going to take the highest year, the biggest purchase from China that China has ever made with our farmers, which is about $15 billion, and do something reciprocal to our farmers, unquote. Because he doesn't understand how tariffs actually work, Trump seems to believe this plan represents a redistribution from China to American farmers. But China does not, in fact, pay for the 25% on $200 billion in Chinese goods and tariffs Trump imposed or reimposed on Chinese goods after months of negotiations failed to bring the two countries into agreement. These tariffs are paid by American importers who often, let me rephrase that, this article says, who often pass the cost along to consumers. I'm going to say that companies always pass costs on to consumers.
You can't eat those costs and still stay in business.
Right, or you're no longer in business, and 25% is not a cost that anybody's going to be willing to eat and survive. So Trump's plan, as vague as it is, seems to represent a selective protection from the costs of tariffs. All Americans, from those who pay for his tariffs in the checkout line to farmers hurt by the retaliatory tariffs China has placed on their goods, are being asked to absorb some short-term pain for the good of the country. But the federal government is subsidizing that cost for only a select group. And this is when we were talking to Tom in Detroit. You know, that was one of the points I was trying to get across is certain groups will benefit from tariffs.
Yeah.
Iron
the
workers,
groups that are getting these payouts.
Exactly. They will benefit, but those benefits are going to be short-term. And if you look at the economy as a whole, they will not, it doesn't make financial sense.
Yeah, nobody benefits from this. Not the U.S., not China. I mean, not even the farmers. I mean, they're just getting status quo. So
the problem is farmers also buy things made of steel, also buy things made of aluminum. And
they even buy computers.
Believe it or not, there are farmers out there with computers. What has the world come to? What do you think? Am I completely off base on this? Is my basic understanding of economics completely at odds with President Trump and his plan to tariff his way into financial Independence, 855 450 free. I don't think I am, but maybe you got a point I haven't considered. 855 450 free. This is Free Talk Live.
Are you concerned that liberty, free market economics, and the values that made America great are no longer taught in schools? Well, so am I. So I got my son the Tuttle Twins children's book series.
My name is Jack, and I'm 11 years old, and I just started the Tuttle Twins. So far, I have learned that some people can use the government to ruin the economy and destroy people's businesses.
Give all the young people in your life a chance at reason and clear thought, because they're not going to get it at school. There are 9 books in the series, and each one teaches a set of ideas that children aren't getting elsewhere. Go to TuttleTwins.com and use coupon code FTL to get 40% off. Again, that's TuttleTwins.com.
This is Free Talk Live, 855 450 free. That's 855 450 3733. In studio, it's myself, Chris, and Michael.
And Michael, yes.
Oh, I was going to say that for you.
Oh,
I know you're working 2 shifts today.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were going to let me rest my voice.
I know. Well, it was Michael did Call to Freedom, which is another show here on Liberty Radio Network.
From 4 to 7.
From 4 to 7. You guys do that every Monday through Friday?
Every weekday, yes.
Yeah. And, Michael helps out. He's on the air here on Free Talk Live from time to time, too. And we just threw a scheduling snafu. I guess that's the best way to put it. I agreed to cover for somebody else, and we kind of neglected that second chair.
Yeah, I left the studio, got as far as the grocery store, then I got a text that nobody's in the studio with you. So
with me, yeah. To be fair, I was here, and it was rather interesting doing what is typically a 2 or a 3 person show by yourself. That was fun. But I do want to tell you about something cool if you've been watching the prices of cryptocurrency seeming to skyrocket. I think the bull market seems to be on, at least for Bitcoin and a lot of other cryptocurrencies, and that's AnyPay. Do you operate a retail business and are looking for a solution for point-of-sale cryptocurrency acceptance? It's never been easier thanks to AnyPay.global. There's no paperwork, no approval process, nothing to open an account. You already have a tablet at your cash register. You're almost done. Just sign up at AnyPay.global. Drop your personal crypto wallet addresses in our setup page and load our app. That's it. You're accepting cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Dash at your store in minutes. Get started now at AnyPay.global. That's AnyPay.global. And this idea that cryptocurrencies are going to benefit, by being accepted at more locations, that's kind of common sense.
Yeah.
But there was huge news coming out in the last day or so from the Winklevoss twins, who own Gemini, which is an enormous exchange, and a country. God, it's a company. It's going to get lost on me. But basically, what they have enabled is Whole Foods. They have enabled. There was a whole list.
Yeah,
of
there's a
big
long
companies.
list. And I had that article. I'd have to dig it up again, but I did post that somewhere.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, but the number of businesses that are going to be able to accept cryptocurrency is going to take a huge jump up, and that's certainly going to benefit U.S. People here in the U.S. who want to take part in what really becomes a new economy outside of the control of governments, and that is a big deal. What we are talking about is definitely within the control of governments, unfortunately, and sadly, that is tariffs. And for all the good that these tariffs are going to do, Trump is saying that, wait, the government needs to bail out our farmers because of all the good that the tariffs have done. I'm still trying to wrap my skull around this one. And
You
I can't
can't
really
wrap
get
your
it.
head around it because it doesn't make any sense.
Is that the problem?
That's the problem.
I suspect you're right. Trump tweeted, "Our great patriot farmers." Side note, that sounds like it came out of Mao's handbook. "Our great patriot farmers will be one of the biggest beneficiaries of what's happening now. Hopefully China will do us the honor of continuing to buy our great farm product, the best, And if not, your country will be making up the difference based on a very high Chinese buy. And that's the end of the tweet. It didn't really make much sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know where he's going with that, but it doesn't sound good.
No. Trump's tariff subsidy program, which comes on the heels of a $12 billion program that was available to farmers hurt by retaliatory tariffs last year, represents a sop to his base. More than 75% of voters in the Farm Belt voted for him in 2016. Yet these same people are being hurt by a self-inflicted trade war as Trump turns his sights on 2020.
So he's just buying votes.
That's it. And that's why you'll see a big turnout in things like steel and aluminum workers, too. Trump's long-term goal is to force Chinese to agree to a trade deal favorable to the U.S. by inflicting pain upon its economy. But in the meantime, his trade war is causing pain to farmers and the financial markets. And if China follows through on its plan to increase tariffs on $60 billion worth of American products on June 1st, consumers likely will feel the hurt too.
Well, they omitted an important word there. If China increases its retaliatory tariffs, the Chinese consumers are going to get hurt, just like Trump's tariffs has hurt Americans.
And if Chinese citizens are hurt by the tariffs imposed by the Chinese, then they are going to have less money to spend on products, including those that are imported from the United States.
Which, as we discussed, is a large chunk of those American imports going to China are food.
Yes. So you're going to have more starving Chinese people as a result of Trump's trade war.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and again, you can slice and dice this thing any way you want. But again, my challenge to callers is convince me that trade wars work. Convince me that tariffs are a good thing, and show me what's the outcome that benefits. It should
anybody.
It should be benefiting everyone in the United States, but these things aren't designed to do that. They are designed to benefit certain groups of people, and that is where political favors come in. Quote, Americans' entire shopping catalog will get more expensive, unquote. Hun Quach, Vice President of International Trade at the Retail Industry Leaders Association, told the New York Times. You don't have to take Quach's word for it. During a Fox News interview on Sunday, White House economics advisor Larry Kudlow admitted that, quote, both sides will suffer, unquote, because of Trump's trade war with China. Kudlow also acknowledged that Trump's understanding of how tariffs work is flawed. But Axios' Jonathan Swan, citing a former White House aide, reported on Tuesday that Trump's false belief about tariffs is, quote, like theology, unquote. So, and that's a sad fact, but, you know, that's where who's ever in the driver's seat at the White House is going to push the truth. And people that want to get ahead in Washington are going to want to follow whatever brand of craziness is being pushed by the commander-in-chief. It's not the first time, and it certainly won't be the last time.
No, we'll see this again in 2021, I'm sure. Whoever's in the White House, then I at this point, I think Trump's going to get reelected. So,
you do think so?
I do.
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think it's a certainty that he will not be reelected. I think if Democrats and people on the left were to replace him, then just come up with a viable candidate, somebody who's not too crazy. Yes, I'm talking to you, Bernie Sanders. Quit bringing up on stage crazy people, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and it should be pretty much a cakewalk.
Yeah, the Democrats should be able to defeat him, but their front runner seems to be creepy Joe Biden.
Which is kind of crazy, too. And I have friends. I have a lot of friends that are Republicans, and I have a lot of friends that are Democrats. Because we have become friends doesn't mean that I'm no longer going to be friends with you because of your politics. That's okay. That's just me. Yeah, and I'm fine with that, and we'll have some spirited disagreements on a lot of topics, but politics isn't. There's no litmus test to be my friend. But this idea that that this is the best you can do. It certainly makes me wonder, Democrats, I mean, you got nobody else you can pull up who's...
They've got to have somebody. I mean,
right. I mean, you think of JFK. I'm not saying you need a JFK, but you need somebody who doesn't come across as just completely wacko. 855-450 free. What do you think? Here's a game. Who should be the next Democrat running for president? If it's not going to be creepy Joe Biden, who should it be? 855-450 free. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450 free. That's our 800 number. That is our toll-free number. That's the number you call to get on the air and tell me what you think. We've been talking Trump, tariffs, trade wars, and Trump's plan, like every good capitalist, to provide a bailout to farmers.
That is not capitalism. That's mercantilism.
Mercantilism,
or corporatism, or
cronyism.
Yeah, cronyism.
Could be
whichever ism you want to call it.
You could just say it's buying votes.
It's not a free market.
It's not a free market, and Trump refers to these as our great patriot farmers, which I think
they're getting bailed out for being Americans.
Yeah, well, and being farmers. To me, that sounds like a line out of something Chairman Mao may have written. But I'll tell you what is not a line that Mao would have written. It would have been the success of cryptocurrencies actually making it into the marketplace, and this is pretty big news for those of us who follow Bitcoin and things like that. Bitcoin comes to Whole Foods, major retailers, in a major coup for digital currency, and this comes to us from Fortune magazine. Since its arrival 10 years ago, cryptocurrencies have struggled to enter mainstream commerce. This could soon change thanks to a new initiative announced on Monday that will reportedly see big-name retailers including Crate & Barrel, Nordstrom, and Amazon-owned Whole Foods now accept Bitcoin and 3 other types of digital currency.
In the stores. In
the stores. The retail initiative comes via a partnership between Flexa, a payment startup, and Gemini, the Winklevoss-owned digital currency company. The Winklevoss twins, as many of you may or may not know, allegedly were involved in the startup of Facebook, this little unknown social media group that maybe some people know about.
I don't know if their claims to be involved in Facebook's startup are true, but they definitely have been in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency since almost the beginning, and they have a lot of it.
Yes, and they were able to get into that with proceeds from being involved in Facebook at an early point in view. They were quick to jump in with Gemini, and it's been a benefit. The more big money that comes in, this has enabled a lot of different businesses to thrive. The retail initiative comes via a partnership, like I said, between Flexa, a payments startup, and Gemini, the Winklevoss-owned digital currency company. It's actually an exchange, and it works by piggybacking onto the digital scanners that many big retailers use to accept phone-based payments from their apps and from digital wallets like Apple Pay. What Flexa has done is persuade the retailers, which include Regal Cinemas, GameStop, Baskin-Robbins, and more, to configure their scanners to recognize payments from its cryptocurrency app, which is called Spedden. SPEDN. See,
yes.
That's kind of a cryptocurrency thing.
It's an inside joke.
It is an inside joke. It's you sort of misspell things by one letter, and this is supposed to be a play on the word spend. The customer simply holds up their app to pay. The store cashier will typically be unaware the customer is paying with cryptocurrency, while the merchant receives the real-time payment in the form of their choosing, be that crypto or dollars, U.S. dollars. I was initially, and this is the writer of this article, I was initially skeptical. While the Winklevoss twins enjoy credibility on the Bitcoin realm, merchants have by and large shunned cryptocurrency because of its volatility and its popularity with cyber criminals. So let's talk about that real quickly.
Oh, yeah, let's get into that.
Let's talk about volatility of Bitcoin. I have seen, and you can demonstrate this, that a lot of stocks are much more volatile in their prices than Bitcoin. I'm going to throw out one small stock. What's it called? Amazon.com. Amazon.com's price is more volatile than Bitcoin. I know that flies in most people's faces, but that's been shown over and over. The daily moves in the price of Amazon exceed those of Bitcoin. And
I didn't know.
It is true. It must be hugely popular with cyber criminals, right, Michael? They must just be running around changing their dollars for their dirty $100 bills for Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Criminals don't like Bitcoin anymore.
They don't. You know why? I think one of the reasons
is too easy to trace.
It's when law enforcement stands up in congressional hearings and says things like, "Man, we wish all criminals would use Bitcoin. It would be so easy to trace. Cash, we can't trace that at all."
No. Cyber criminals' currency of choice at the moment, as far as I understand it, is Monero, which is actually difficult to trace.
If they were to use one.
If they were to use one. But
even
the thing is, most criminals are using U.S. $100 bills.
Yes.
Like the physical pieces of paper.
Well, then terrorists must use cryptocurrency, right?
Nope.
No,
terrorists hate cryptocurrency.
They do. They like to use.
They love those $100 bills.
International drug trade. Those guys must be all about Bitcoin, right?
Nope. Drug dealers don't want it. They want those $100 bills.
So, and this is common, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that are spread by people like the World Bank and others who are honestly threatened by the idea of a currency that is outside of their control. And that's what Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are, outside of their control. I'm going to continue with the story. The app, however, appears to work as advertised. This weekend, I tried it out by downloading a test version of Spedden and transferred $10 worth of Bitcoin to it. Next, I went to Baskin-Robbins in my neighborhood and bought a small coffee by scanning the app. It worked. Next, I went to Starbucks, another partner in the project, but an unofficial one, and bought a banana. That worked, too. I'm wondering where he's going to run out of his $10.
Surprise.
In each case, the app adjusted the amount of Bitcoin in my wallet. The first widespread, low-friction opportunity for consumers to shop with cryptocurrencies, this is potentially a huge deal. The Spedden app lets users spend 4 types of cryptocurrency: Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and a so-called stablecoin called the Gemini dollar, which is pegged to the value of the U.S. dollar and banked by banking giant State Street. Is this time different? Over the years, some merchants have tried accepting Bitcoin, but many have eventually abandoned it, in part because of slow processing times on cryptocurrency networks. Meanwhile, for consumers, using cryptocurrency as an everyday payment mechanism has proved impractical because the cryptocurrency's volatility. A wallet worth of $100 worth of Bitcoin at the start of the week may only be worth $80 at the end. So
that's true, but it could go the other way, too. I mean, the $80 of Bitcoin we all had a week ago is now worth $160.
Right, and that's the thing. So Bitcoin has been described to me by a lot of people that are smarter than me as slightly deflationary. The idea that we expect it to gradually increase in value over the years, contrary to the U.S. dollar, which is designed and implemented to lose value.
It's inflationary. The government just prints more of it, and they have to.
Yeah.
They have no choice.
And it's not just the printing. Whenever you get a car loan, you have created money out of thin air.
That's where the money... Printing is just
it's an easy way to say it.
It's an easy way to say it that people understand. The money is not actually printed to come into existence. It comes into existence when you take out a loan.
Through debt. So when we assume more debt, we're actually creating more money, which just is insane. The reason is that's how fiat currencies work, that there is no intrinsic value behind them. And a lot of people will say the same thing about Bitcoin. Well, There's nothing there. Well, there is, and what it has of intrinsic value is security, and much more security than any other currency on the market in history. That's a fact.
It has immutable mathematical properties of the universe that no human can violate.
Exactly. That is a very eloquent way of putting that. And I would agree that there are properties. The gold has properties. Gold has some great properties when you want to look at what makes a good currency. But it does fall short in a couple areas like portability, divisibility. You want
to buy $100,000 worth of something from your supplier in China? Gold is not what you're going to use.
Well, that may be an applicable case. Like you could. Like if it ends up being like 44 kilograms of gold, okay, well, that might make financial sense if you're giving me a discount because I'm paying in gold.
You might settle that in gold, but when you can that takes weeks because you got to ship the gold over and get your stuff shipped back. But a cryptocurrency transaction, that value is over there in minutes.
And with gold, I can't buy a cup of coffee. I mean, it's a whole lot of change.
That's
$855,
true.
$450 free. This is Free Talk Live.
You love Bitcoin. It's the future, right? Well, no, not if everyone stops using it. I mean, think about it. How many places in your town take Bitcoin? One? None? Let's be real. If this Bitcoin thing is ever going to happen, it's going to need your help. The good news is, the guys at AnyPay have your back. We built a website called helpmetakebitcoin.com, and it's a place you can send any business, and they'll be set up to take Bitcoin in 5 minutes. helpmetakebitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Now in hour number 3, we do 2 hours. We do 3 hours of live radio every single day, 365 days a year. How do we do it? So we got some great hosts and some great co-hosts that are dedicated to this idea that if we talk about the ideas of liberty, then maybe somebody out there will start to grasp those, and they will share those ideas with their friends and family, and maybe we can get back to having a free country. Who knows?
It could happen.
A wild idea. In the studio, it's myself, Chris,
and Michael,
and we've been all over the board. That's what always happens here, because sometimes we talk about stories that we bring in, and sometimes our callers call in with things that are interesting to them. And one thing that has always been interesting to me, I don't think it's always, it's since I heard about these books, and these books are the Tuttle Twins children's book. Michael, have you ever seen these?
No, I haven't.
They are so cool. So what it is, I have bought, these are written for children. I bought them so I could share these books with friends of mine that have kids. I know that Mark, who is one of our regular hosts, has kids, and I know he's bought his son Jack all of these books. The idea is to give all the young people in your life a chance at reason and clear thought, because they're not getting it in school. There are 9 books in the series, and each one teaches a set of ideas that children are not getting anywhere else. Things like free markets, liberty, entrepreneurship. Go to TuttleTwins.com and use coupon code FTL to get 40% off. Again, that's TuttleTwins.com. Use the code FTL for 40% off. I cannot recommend these books highly enough.
These are important concepts for everyone to learn, not just your kids. I mean, you who are listening to the show right now, you might not be aware of these things yet. Maybe you are, and that's why you listen. Maybe you're not, because you've just tuned in this show for the first time ever. We are on a few new radio stations now, so
over 200
over
radio
200
stations, which is a pretty big milestone, I think, for any talk radio program. Never mind one that's focused on the ideas of liberty. And of that, we are basically the only pro-liberty syndicated radio show in America.
That's what we've been doing for more than 15 years now.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, radio shows do not go on this long.
They don't. They come and they go, and I'm sure many of us have listened to various shows only to find out that they are no longer around.
Yeah, your favorite host just decides to do something else one day, and then they're gone.
Right.
But we will be here because we always have our message. Liberty is good. Tyranny is bad. I mean, it's that simple.
And there's never a shortage of tyrannical stories we can cover.
No,
and occasionally there
are
some good stories. There are examples of more often people as opposed to governments doing good things.
Yeah, sometimes there's good news. I admit that.
Sometimes it's sort of like, can we please have some good news in here? But one story we were talking about before the break, and that is this push by a company called Flexa with their new app Spedden, S-P-E-D-N, which will allow people to spend their cryptocurrencies at places like Whole Foods, Baskin Robbins. I'm trying to skim through here for a couple of the other ones.
Starbucks, I think they said.
Starbucks is on there. They're definitely in the early stages, but this idea that, if you could buy, you could exchange your U.S. dollars, these things that lose value every day. And I don't know how many people are aware of that there's a reason that a loaf of bread costs $3. When you were growing up, it was probably $1, maybe it was 50 cents. When I was born, it was about a quarter. It doesn't mean that it's more expensive to produce a loaf of bread now. It just means that my currency, the U.S. dollar, has lower purchasing power. It is less powerful than it once was, and that's by design. With cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, we expect those, and 10 years has proven this to be true, that they are going to be mildly deflationary, which means that my purchasing power actually increases. A good example
over
of this,
time.
There's a product that we talk about on here, a service called SaveItPurse.com.
Yep.
And in 2014, I first heard of Save It Purse, and the idea is really basic. If you're willing to part with your cryptocurrency, then SaveItPurse.com will match you up with people who want your cryptocurrency, and they will buy you things on Amazon.
The things you want.
At a discount. So imagine, you've been looking around for this new car stereo, and it's $150, but this guy is saying, well, if you go through me, I'll sell it to you for $125, and I'll take my payment in cryptocurrency. That's a really cool idea. And that means you can actually buy things at less than Amazon prices, which is almost the go-to place for everyone.
Yeah, the lowest price on practically anything you might want is at Amazon, and buying it in cryptocurrency this way means you can save even more money than that.
So when I first heard about this idea, you had to deposit some Bitcoin in with Purse. So I did that. I put $50 in 2014. Then I forgot about it. I forgot I did it. I just,
You totally forgot about Purse for that whole time. 5 years.
Well, I didn't forget about it. I forgot that I had actually deposited $50 there. So it becomes 2017, and I get an email from Purse about something. It's just like, regular email you get. I'm like, Purse, they made it sound like I had money there. And I'm like, I wonder if I didn't just set up an account. I wonder if I actually put some money there. I go and check my balance, and it's $1,600.
There you go.
So again, I deposited $50, forgot about it for 3 years, and it turned out to be worth a whole lot more than it ever did before. And that's pretty powerful if you can extrapolate that and imagine investments that increase at that rate. It's not hyperbole to say that Bitcoin has been the largest, the best performing asset in the world over the last 10 years.
Probably almost in history.
Yeah, and it is an amazing thing. The fact that it provides other things like, the ability to not involve government, that's just a bonus. 855-450 free. So now we have this company called Flexa working with Gemini, who is rolling out this, ability to pay with Bitcoin at places that are shopped at every single day. I think is a pretty amazing thing. And we're going to see more and more companies hop onto this bandwagon as more and more people start to understand the benefits of why Bitcoin is Bitcoin and why looking for alternatives to the U.S. dollar are a good thing. Other names that have been brought on, Petco, Lowe's, the home improvement supply place, Office Depot. They are pulling Starbucks from the list of apps just at this point, but it definitely, I mean, you've got the Winklevoss twins appearing in a photo purchasing a coffee with their app at Starbucks. So
now, I did try to install this app earlier today, but it's only on iPhone.
iOS, yeah.
iOS.
I found that out, too.
I couldn't, it's not on Android yet, so I could not try it out.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that there aren't lots and lots of mom and pop stores. You know, my business, Route 101 Local Goods, we're just a little gift shop here in Keene, New Hampshire, where the show is broadcast from. We accept Bitcoin, and we accept.
Are you using AnyPay?
Yeah, we use AnyPay, which is another sponsor.
They're
here
very
on the
good
show.
for small businesses.
It is so easy. Basically, here's my litmus test: is can I show it to my girlfriend, and can she process transactions without asking me every time? Because we don't process cryptocurrency transactions all day long like we do with credit cards or we do with cash. You know, it tends to be kind of every once in a while, but even she can grasp it. So that's not meant to belittle my girlfriend. I'm just recognizing her technological limitations. 855-450-FREE. What do you think? Would being able to buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks change your views of Bitcoin? This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's our toll-free number. That's 855-450-3733. In studio, it's Chris.
And Michael.
And we've been talking cryptocurrency, but we're going to change it up a bit. And we're going to go right back to traditional banks. What do you say, Michael?
Oh, I wish I could never go back to a traditional bank. But, you know, they're probably going to be around for a while.
I know, but I try to use cryptocurrency services as much as I can, and the more ways that we can adapt that. But let's even go a step further back. Let's go back to an idea that was tried in the early part of the 20th century. That would be Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders.
Oh, God. Whatever it is, it's going to be bad.
Advocating that your post office should double as your bank.
Oh, God.
What could possibly go wrong? This comes to us from Fox Business News. New York Democrat Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders are pushing a proposal known as postal banking, a system whereby the post office would be authorized to provide financial services. What could go wrong?
No.
As if I don't have to wait a long time in bank lines anyway.
Yeah,
let's just.
I go to the post office as little as possible.
Anytime I hear that there's some new method of me mailing something without actually going there or dealing with anybody, I'm all over it. But no, this should be your bank. That's a good idea, I'm sure. Great. In legislation unveiled last week, which also aims to cap credit card interest rates at 15%, the pair of self-identified Democrat socialists say postal banking could provide relief to low-income Americans.
What?
Post office, quote, post offices exist in almost every community in our country, unquote, Sanders wrote in a blog post. Quote, there are more than 31,000 retail post offices in this country. An important way to provide decent banking opportunities for low-income communities is to allow the U.S. Postal Service to engage in basic banking services, unquote. What could possibly go wrong here?
Yeah, and why would the post office need to engage in basic banking services to serve low-income? Do we not have banks and credit unions already?
And if those banks and credit unions find markets that are underserved, they will serve them. Another thing that you will find in very low income places are things like payday lenders. For people that can't, that because of federal government regulations are unable to open checking accounts. These are limitations brought on by the government. So what does government say? Hey, we've got a solution. Let us run more of the financial system.
Yeah, we broke your legs. Now we're going to give you a crutch. And see, you need us.
Exactly. Some of the proposed services, and I want to jump in real quick here. This is not a new idea, and I haven't read all of this article in detail, so I don't know if they go into it. But postal banking used to be a thing. It was a thing from about 1911, I think, into the early 1960s.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that certain post office provided some level of banking services. Sometimes it was just check cashing or things like that. But this was something that was done. Let me rephrase that. This was something that was tried before. There's a reason it's not done no anymore. Longer
well, you know,
done.
the thing is, if you don't have a bank account, well, one, you can go get one. They don't turn people away just because they have low incomes. The problem with that is you might get an account that has fees on it, and you might not like that. But the thing is, there are already options. I mean, you can actually go to Walmart and cash your check.
Yes.
Get the whole thing in cash or on a Walmart gift card or on a Walmart Visa card, actually.
Right.
And then you can just go and spend your money.
Yeah. And that's certainly an option. There's all sorts of options other than government being involved in the financial system, which we have today. This is why this is a tried and proven horrible idea. All the bank failures and all the issues that we've had in this country in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years are not because of banks.
Yeah.
They are because banks can play by whatever insane rules the federal government sets up for them. And when the federal government tries to micromanage something like the banking industry, then you are going to get unintended consequences. Things like encouraging people who cannot afford homes to buy homes.
Yeah. If you don't actually have a bank account and you want one, all you have to do is go to your nearest credit union, community credit union. It's going to cost you $5, and you're going to get an account that is in your name. You can get checks on it. You can get a debit card, and there are practically no fees other than the initial $5.
Right. Now, some people have problems because of past bad credit.
Yeah, if you've had bad experiences with a bank before, like if you've not paid on your loans or you bounced checks or whatever, they're going to have you in check systems for 7 years. And then that is going to mean you can't go get a bank account for 7 years. And then you have to go to Walmart or whatever.
Right, but that is a program that's completely predatory.
If you're not doing things you shouldn't with your money, then there's no reason you have to be unbanked.
Yeah, but the idea that if you are unbanked, then you have to turn to the federal government, that's completely wrong.
And you don't. We already have the Walmart card. It was I think it was like $3 or something. It was really cheap.
Yeah. So was that to just buy
to get the piece of plastic,
a debit card?
And I forget what the check cashing fees are, but like I said, I think it's nothing if you get it on a Walmart card.
And then they charge so much if they put it on a Visa or something like that?
Right. If they put it into a bank account or something, or give you cash, then you pay a fee. But
gotcha.
As far as I know, if you put it on a Walmart card, there's no fee.
Right. Walmart
branded card.
Yeah. And if you have a super Walmart, there's probably very little you need in life that you probably can't buy in that one store.
Yeah, but I mean, even like a Walmart Visa card, I don't think there's a fee for that either.
Yeah, and these are free market solutions. But no, Bernie Sanders and AOC, they say we should turn 31,000 post offices into banks because the government has done such a good job of managing our banking sector. Some of the proposed services a postal banking system could provide include low-interest loans, checking and savings accounts, debit cards, check cashing, bill payment, ATM service, online banking service, and electronic money transfers. Just to go back to your point, with the exception of low-interest loans, I didn't see anything on that list that I couldn't do at Walmart.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much...
That was pretty much it.
I mean, we already have all these services, and anybody that wants them can get them.
Correct. The measure was framed as a way to prevent lower-income Americans from falling victim to predatory payday lending practices and from having to rely on
Wait,
Wall
they're not
Street.
offering payday lending, though.
Well, he was saying that is an alternative low-income people do have, is to go to
a payday
lender. And from having to rely on Wall Street's largest institutions. Of that, I am in agreement with Bernie Sanders, just not the method. 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's our toll-free number, 855-450-3733. Call in. Let us know what you think. We've been talking about AOC and Bernie Sanders. That's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And Bernie Sanders, a hopeful for the Democratic nomination for president. This idea, this very, very old idea that we should turn our post offices into banks to serve the poor. In a report on reforming the post office released by the Treasury Department earlier this year, the government came out against a postal banking option.
Huh.
Quote,
that's odd.
Believe it or not, quote, given the USPS's narrow expertise... I love that. And capital limitations. Yeah,
there's
$5
that.
billion in the hole. Expanding into sectors where USPS does not have a comparative advantage or when balance sheet risks might arise, such as postal banking, should not be pursued, unquote. The report stated. Currently, people can go to the post office for money orders, and in the past, the agency offered Americans the options of opening savings account, but that policy ended in the late 1960s. And like I said, that idea of postal banking was prevalent from about 1911. I think that's what I looked up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, it came about in the idea in the period of our largest expansions of federal government power with the progressive era that sort of began in the 1890s and continues till today. If you want to know who to thank for big government, you should really look at Teddy Roosevelt, hero of Republicans coast to coast, and Woodrow Wilson, hero of Democrats coast to coast. Those were the two biggest proponents of progressivism.
Big government is bipartisan. I mean, both parties do it. They just do it in different ways.
Yeah, they do. And even back then, this was certainly not a mainstream idea. Progressivism wasn't. There were a lot of people on the left and the right who opposed it. But then they got a little. They got a little bit of that graft. They started to see the money and the potential. What Wall Street saw was the opportunity to control the nation's money, and that goes back to Mayor Rothschild, who famously said, "Allow me to control a country's money, and I care not who makes the laws."
That's about right, and that's about the time John Maynard Keynes came along too, and came along with his general theory, and that just gave his theory. He basically pulled it out of his rear end. It doesn't make any sense, but it did give government the cover it needed, to implement economic policies that would allow them to control the money and have money to implement these big government programs.
Absolutely. And a lot of people may not be familiar with John Maynard Keynes, but you may have heard the term Keynesianism.
Mm-hmm.
What's taught in colleges and has been taught since the 40s, 50s is Keynesian economics. And Keynes was brilliant, I'll give him this, in coming up with an idea that he knew governments would love. That it basically comes down to this: spend as much money as you want on any kind of project.
Mm-hmm.
You can hand out money to your friends. You can do whatever you want. You can, as long as money is being spent.
Yeah,
then
keep that money moving.
The economy will grow. Right, the velocity of money. Money needs to be turned over, and it needs to keep moving.
And that's what they did after when that's what FDR did with the Depression, is started all these programs, the Civilian Conservation Corps, the National Recovery Administration, all these, and just spent amazing amounts of money.
And it did not pull us out of a Great Depression, even though
not.
Keynes insisted it would. That's
because he made the whole thing up.
He did. And if you really look at the numbers, you'll find out that our Great Depression did not end until after World War II ended. And surprise, an inflection, a big infusion of capital in the form of labor was what really brought us out. It was all those troops returning home, and it was an amazing thing. But postal banking, probably not so much. Currently, I did say that, the debate on postal banking reemerged in the national dialogue about 5 years ago when it was suggested by the Post Office's Office of Inspector General. In response to the recommendation, the Post Office said its core function was delivering, not banking. Sanders is not the only presidential candidate that has endorsed postal banking. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York and Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren have also advocated the idea. Unbelievable. The Post Office, meanwhile, is bleeding red ink. Losses between 2007 and 2018 are about $69 billion.
That's a lot of red ink.
That's a lot of red ink. That's more than I have. The last time the agency recorded a profit was more than a decade ago. It has also defaulted on more than $40 billion in payments owed to pre-fund retirement health care expenses.
The post office doesn't have enough money to pay its pensions to its retirees, and they want to start banking with it? Where are they going to find the money?
It doesn't matter with Keynesian economics. You just create it out of thin air. It's no problem, Michael.
Oh, spend it. Yeah,
that's not a problem. During recent testimony before lawmakers, Postmaster General Megan Brennan said the agency's board of directors is working on a plan to reform operations and shore up its finances. I suspect that she copy and pasted this from the Postmaster General's report every year for the last 10 years.
Yeah, well, you could copy and paste it and just change the year, and it's the same news.
We are working on a plan to reform operations and shore up our finances. Meanwhile, experts have recommended closing locations in some rural areas as part of a strategy to put the post office on a path towards financial stability. I don't think there's any chance of it actually achieving financial stability. The question really becomes is, do we as consumers value a post office?
The problem with the post office as it exists right now is it wants to be independent, but it's beholden to Congress. It can't make its own decisions.
That's true. And there are some things that it has done because it is beholden to Congress. Some decisions it's made internally. Mm-hmm. Some were forced upon them. You know, the postal unions are huge. And as a result, they have unions that are fighting against the taxpayers, basically.
Yeah, well, that's what unions do.
That's what they do. They
fight for the interests of their members.
Well, they're supposed to,
which are not necessarily your interests.
More often than not, they are not. It's insane. But this idea that somehow the post office, which can deliver first-class mail because they have a monopoly on it and nobody else can deliver it.
Yeah.
They do a decent job of getting all my junk mail to me on time.
Yeah, unless you live where I live, which apparently we can't get mail.
Yeah, you have a lot of problems at your address.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. We put our names on the mailbox like they asked us to, but they still won't deliver. It's still hit and miss. I mean, I usually get my packages, but regular letters just disappear into the ether.
Is there that much you really care about?
No.
Ever since this thing called email came out, my girlfriend's nuts about this too. She's can you stop at the mailbox on the way home? I'm like, why?
Yeah, I don't get that much physical mail. I mean, the credit union still sends me paper bank statements, but that's it.
Right.
I don't get that much unless I'm like getting a debit card replaced or something. But
yeah, and those are things that you do want it to be there.
Those are things I really would like the post office to deliver and know that it's going to happen.
Can the post office somehow miraculously change itself into something that's profitable and works and be the bank to the poor? I don't think so. But
not unless Congress lets go.
Exactly. Maybe you think they can. If so, give me a call, 855-450-FREE. Let me know what you think. Hey, this is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. Final moments tonight, but hey, you call in right now, you may be able to get on the air and let us know what you think about any of the stories we talked about tonight. But one thing I will also say is that if you happen to be in New Hampshire around maybe June 13th to June 18th of this year, you might want to join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians this summer for Forkfest 2019. Once again, those dates are June 13th to the 18th at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest happens right before the Porcupine Freedom Festival, also known as Porkfest, and Forkfest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping or RV site or a motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th to the 18th. You can simply relax and go camping with other liberty-loving individuals, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for Forkfest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with other Forkfesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the Forkfest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial Forkfest website, forkfest.party. That's forkfest.party.
And bring a jacket because we don't know what the weather's going to be in the middle of June. This morning, half of New Hampshire had snow on the ground. So,
Michael, I woke up, and it was probably a little later. Today was a day off, and my girlfriend's moving around. I kind of glance out the window, and I swear to God, I saw something white. And I thought to myself, the sun must be shining, but I'm like, it's kind of cloudy out, but maybe the sun's shining, maybe it's hitting something. And I went to another room in our house, and I looked out the window, and I saw something white outside, and I thought, well, that's weird. Honest to God, it never even connected with me that this could possibly be snow. But snow it was. Welcome to New Hampshire.
That's the way it is.
And I want to say welcome to somebody else. I hope he's listening. I know he has before. His name is Barry, and he is a silver amplifier. We've been giving little shout-outs to some of those people that believe enough in the ideas of liberty that they want to see those ideas promoted and spread throughout the country and the world. And that's what our amplifier program is. It's a way for people to help out the show and help us get more radio stations and spread that word. Amplifying stands for advertise, marketing, and promoting, and that's the only thing we use that money for.
That's literally what the $5 or more goes toward.
Absolutely. So thank you, Barry, Silver Amplifier. We're going to turn to the phones where we've got David from New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Oh, something, but I can top you on that snow thing. I remember a while back, years ago, camping Memorial Day weekend in Minnesota in the Boundary Waters canoe area.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I know where that's at.
Woke
there?
up in the morning.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello?
Yep, I got you.
Woke up in the morning, 8 inches of snow on the tent.
Oh, my. That's quite a bit.
Yeah, that was like June 1st.
I thought I had good snow stories. So this last winter, my son, who's convinced himself that he can go through life being on vacation by working vacation-y sort of jobs, he's been a snowboarder instructor for a couple years. This year he spent his winter at Mammoth Lakes, California, Mammoth Mountain. I think it was somewhere in February when I just happened to, I wonder how much snow they've got so far this year. 660 inches as of February.
Wow.
They're expecting snow and skiable snow till July 7th now.
Okay, that's got us all beat.
Yeah, I was going to say. So what else you got for us?
Yeah, I remember skiing in July in that Arapahoe Basin in Colorado. But yeah, out west you get basically it's about 2-3 times a week you get a foot of snow. What I was calling about yesterday, I called. There was a wonderful New Mexico. Please avoid it for your own health. There was a bus driver that got arrested a couple days ago for raping. School bus driver, public school bus driver got arrested for raping a 7-year-old.
Oh my God!
And then today there was a teacher, a New Mexico teacher, got sentenced for something he was convicted of a couple months back. He helped himself to a high school student as well, and he got sentenced to like 18 years for carrying on for over a year with I don't know how old. They don't say how old the girl was. And then when I was reading that, I happened to notice that it was just last year that in New Mexico, just last year in December, there was a Gary Greger, Santa Fe Espanola. Jury finds ex-teacher Greger guilty on child molestation. And then just a month before that last year, there was former New Mexico high school football coach sentenced to 15 years for rape charges involving female students. So,
is there something in the water out there?
Well, I was going to ask if there's anybody out there, any other states out there that want to compete with New Mexico here. If anybody can,
let's not have that competition.
Yeah,
let's just not.
But it's insanity, and a lot of people will say, well, maybe it is New Mexico or maybe it's Wisconsin because a bunch of these stories popped up in Wisconsin. The problem is an idea that if you gather a whole bunch of students from a whole bunch of schools and consolidate them into huge, large public school systems, that somehow you're going to get a better result. You're not going to. You're going to try to standardize everything so you save money, which means there's going to be worse results. It's going to be centrally planned. You're going to have the worst of the worst can find their way into a crowd, and if you are a pedophile, what better job could you possibly have than working in a school district? And
that's where the kids are at.
Exactly. Right. And there are a lot of good people. A lot of good people take up teaching and things like that for all the right reasons. And this isn't to disparage them personally. I disparage their choice of occupation. I think we'd be better off without centralized education. But, it's just this tragedy. It's almost a tragedy of the commons.
Almost.
Yeah, it's kind of a common theme in government. It seems like virtually every government agency, every government function attracts people that want to use the powers of that agency to get whatever it is they're personally after. You know what I mean?
Right. And sometimes those things are benevolent, and I get that, and sometimes they're abhorrent and malicious, and that's certainly the case with these types of stories. Who wants to hear this stuff? Nobody does. Nobody ever does, but it's part of what you get when you centralize power and you try to centrally plan things. I don't understand how this is not a eye-opener for more people.
They think it's just isolated incidents. They don't see the underlying thread of government.
Right.
Attracting these government power in particular, attracting bad people.
Yeah. And if you have a tyrannical bone in your body, then where do you turn?
Washington.
Sure, you can go apply at Starbucks, but you're not going to keep your job very long. But should you go into politics, then you can, just ride it for all it's worth, and that's sad. Yeah.
A funny note on that former Judge Sheriff Heath White that stole $162,000 worth of stuff from the sheriff's office while he was there.
And then got to try his own case, right? They wanted him to.
Yeah, exactly. And he was going to be the judge presiding over his own case.
So what's the update?
I noticed in looking at his Facebook, there's several Facebook. He's got one. His wife's got one. Heath White, Jennifer White is her name, and then they have a business which was selling some of the stolen guns. They Old Mill Feed Store, and Old Mill something in Moriarty, New Mexico. It comes up real easy on Facebook. I noticed in their pictures and their photos, there's a photo of a couple of their workers standing with the guns for sale on the wall behind them, like 4, 5, 6 different guns. And I'm assuming that some of them came from the stolen proceeds when he was buying guns with the county money and then selling them at his feed store. So that's pretty
very likely.
100% profit. David, thanks for your call. That is, aside from the fact that these people end up in power and they end up passing laws that affect the rest of us, sometimes the worst possible things could happen, and it's just a real wake-up call. That's all the time we have for tonight, but I want to thank you for joining us on Free Talk Live. We are here 365 days a year, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern, always ready to take your calls, always ready to hear your opinions, and occasionally we might disagree, but we like to have a good, thoughtful conversation. Good night.
I want to tell you about my favorite cryptocurrency wallet, Edge Wallet, at edge.app. Edge is the wallet I use more than any other, and that was true long before Edge Wallet became a sponsor of Free Talk Live. Edge Wallet allows you to buy, sell, trade, and securely hold your cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, tokens, Monero, Ripple, Dash, Bitcoin Cash, and more. It's available for both Android and iOS, and you can download it via the Play or App Store or via Edge Wallet's website, edge.app. Secure your freedom with Edge Wallet.